The first full week I spent in the house was a kind of baptism. I woke at 5:30 every morning, the way Granddad Elias had, to the sound of mourning doves cooing on the barn roof and the soft creak of the floorboards warming under the rising sun. Coffee on the back step, boots unlaced, watching mist lift off the creek like steam from Grandma Rose's kettle. I measured every room twice. Living room 22 by 18, kitchen 14 by 16, with the original cast iron sink still gleaming under decades of elbow grease. Upstairs hall with the crooked banister Grandma swore was character. I sketched the rotten porch newel post in my field book, calculated load bearing for the sagging ridge beam, priced heart pine flooring at the lumberyard in town where the owner, Mr. Halvorson, remembered Granddad buying nails by the coffee can. The crew, 3 men I'd worked with on a dozen Richmond restorations, was due Monday. I wanted every nail, every shim, every coat of milk paint documented before a single hammer swung. Saturday I drove the fence line in the truck, slow, window down, radio off. The cedar posts Granddad said in 1952 were still solid, but the rails had silvered to driftwood and half the pickets were missing. I stopped at the southwest corner where the blackberry bramble had swallowed the gate. While I hacked a path with the brush hook, a red-tailed hawk circled overhead, screaming like a rusty hinge. That was when I found the first flyer nailed to a locust post, bright yellow, block letters. This property in violation of community standards. No address, but the aerial photo inset was unmistakably my barn, taken from a drone high enough to catch the crooked cupola. I left it hanging, snapped a picture with the date stamp, and added it to the growing harassment folder back at the house. Sunday I attended services at Bethel Baptist, the little white church half a mile down the road where Grandma played the pump organ until arthritis took her fingers. Folks I hadn't seen in 30 years shook my hand, asked after Ellen, my wife, gone 5 years now to the cancer that started in her lungs and ended everywhere, told me how good the old place looked in my hands. Nobody mentioned the flyer, but I caught sidelong glances and heard whispers behind hymnals. On the way home I stopped at the convenience store for milk and a paper. The cashier, a girl who couldn't be more than 20 with a name tag reading Kaylee, rang me up without meeting my eyes. Heard you're fighting the HOA, she muttered. My mom says they're meaner than yellow jackets. I paid in cash and left a 5 in the jar for the animal shelter. Monday the crew arrived at 7 sharp. Luis, Marco, and young Tyler, all 3 in steel toes and tool belts heavy enough to anchor a barge. We started on the porch, ripped out the rotten decking, sistered the joists with pressure-treated 2x10s, replaced the newel post with a turned cedar column I'd milled myself the winter before in my Richmond shop. By noon the Mercedes was back, crawling past at 15 miles an hour. Laurel hung out the passenger window with her camera, snapping the lumber stack. The portage on, Tyler's pickup with the magnetic sign advertising Hargrove Historic Restoration. I waved like we were old friends. She did not wave back. Luis asked if we should cover the lumber. I told him no. Let them photograph. Every frame was evidence. That afternoon, I found the second set of flyers, 20 of them stapled to every telephone pole from my gate to the church. Same yellow paper, same aerial, now with a new line. Non-compliant eyesore brings down property values. I collected them all, photographed each location with the pole number and mile marker, and stored them in a separate binder labeled public shaming. Marco asked if we should take them down. I told him no. Let the paper trail grow legs. Let the neighbors see who was really bringing down values. Tuesday brought rain, a slow summer soaker that turned the driveway to gumbo and filled the creek until it roared like a freight train. We worked inside, pulling lath and plaster in the upstairs hall to expose the original beadboard ceiling. Around 3 the sheriff's cruiser rolled up, lights off, Deputy Rollins at the wheel, a man I'd coached in Little League 30 years ago. I met him on the porch with coffee in a chipped enamel mug. Got a complaint about unpermitted construction and commercial vehicles, he said, apologetic. I handed him the county permit, the historical society letter, and the tax receipt for my truck. He wrote it all down, radioed it in, and left with a slice of Martha Greeley's pound cake I'd picked up at the church bazaar. Before he pulled away he added, between you and me, that HOA ain't on any map I can find. Wednesday Eleanor returned with reinforcements. This time 4 people, Martin with his clipboard, Laurel with the camera, a new man in a polo shirt embroidered Meadowbrook compliance, and Eleanor herself in a navy blazer despite the 90-degree heat. They marched up the driveway like a parade nobody invited. I was on the roof patching flashing. Luis waved me down. I descended the ladder slow, phone already recording in my shirt pocket. We're citing additional violations, Eleanor announced. Roofing materials stored improperly, noise ordinance breach, unauthorized workers on site. She handed me a fresh stack of papers. I glanced at the top sheet, $2,800 per day, retroactive to Monday. I took the papers, folded them once, and tucked them into my back pocket. You're trespassing. We have inspection rights, Polo Shirt said, sweat beading under his collar. Show me the covenant recorded against my deed. Eleanor's smile could cut glass. Legal formalities are in process. I stepped forward until my boots touched her polished pumps. Leave. Now. The new man reached for his phone. Martin put a hand on his arm. Eleanor held my stare for a long 10 count, then pivoted on her heel. They retreated to the Mercedes. I followed far enough to catch the new plate, VX9472. Different car, same game. That night, I added a 5th camera above the barn door, wired it to a battery backup, and set the system to ping my phone if motion crossed any sensor after dark. At 2:14 a.m., the alert chimed. I rolled out of bed, pulled on jeans, and watched the live feed. A figure in black hoodie and nitrile gloves circling the lumber stack, spray painting violator and dripping red across my kiln-dried pine. I slipped out the back door, crossed the yard silent in sock feet, and flipped on the floodlights. The figure bolted, vaulted the fence, and disappeared into the woods. The paint was still wet. I left it. Evidence. I took close-ups of the footprints in the mud, size 10, deep tread, same as the boot prints I'd seen near the mailbox 2 nights earlier. Thursday I drove to Richmond to meet Tom at his office above the old tobacco warehouse. I spread the new binders across his desk. Trespass photos, vandalism video, retroactive fines, the sheriff's report. He whistled low. They're escalating. Good. The more rope, the tighter the noose. He pulled up the LLC filings for Meadowbrook Properties. For purchases, for flips, $1.2 million profit. Then he showed me something I'd missed. Eleanor's personal residence, a 6-bedroom McMansion in the New Gulf community, bought cash 2 years ago. She's laundering the flips through lifestyle, he said. We hit her where she lives. Friday I cold called Daniel Lawson again. This time his wife, Emily, answered. We've been waiting for someone to fight, she said, voice raw. We'll do whatever it takes. I recorded a 15-minute statement. The sleepless nights, the baby's colic worsened by stress, the marriage counseling, the final sale at 3 a.m. Because they couldn't take another flyer. Martha Greeley's daughter drove her mother 2 hours to my kitchen table. Martha's hands shook as she described hiding in her closet when the Mercedes parked outside at dawn. Ryan and Sarah Mitchell joined via Zoom from their apartment in Charlotte, faces still pale from the memory of bankruptcy court. Saturday I installed motion-activated sprinklers along the driveway. Agricultural grade, the kind used to scare deer. I tested them at dusk. The arc reached 30 feet. I labeled the valve box irrigation only. Let them try trespassing in February. Sunday the community meeting happened by accident. Widow Johnson, 78, lived in the original Sears kit house at the Bend, walked over with a shoebox of oatmeal raisin cookies and a question. If we form a real association, can we keep the painters and the fine collectors out for good? I explained the 50% petition rule. She left with the cookies and returned an hour later with 3 signed forms. Word spread through the church directory, the feed store bulletin, the group text for the volunteer fire department. By nightfall, I had 22 signatures and a potluck scheduled in the barn for the following Sunday. Monday, Jenna Brooks called. I've got airtime Thursday. Can you get me the victims on camera? I said yes before I thought it through. Tuesday we filmed. Daniel and Emily on their old front porch, now someone else's Airbnb. Martha in her new condo garden, voice trembling but steady. Ryan and Sarah in their cramped rental, wedding photo on the fridge like a reminder of what they'd lost. I spoke on my own porch, sawdust in my hair, hammer in my hand. This land fed my family for 100 years. Nobody gets to auction it off with fake letters. Wednesday, Jenna's crew staked out Eleanor's mansion. At 7:03 a.m. The garage door rose, the Mercedes backed out. Jenna stepped into the driveway, mic forward. MS. Wickham, why does Meadowbrook HOA have no legal existence yet threatens foreclosure? Eleanor's face went through shock, fury, and forced calm in 3 seconds flat. No comment. She floored it, tires chirping on Belgian block. Jenna's cameraman caught the license plate and the tremor in Eleanor's hand on the wheel. Thursday at 6 p.m. The segment aired. 8 minutes that gutted a scam. Graphics showed the profit trail in red arrows. My recorded call played in full, Eleanor's reasonable voice offering to buy my birthright for pennies while dangling a lien. The ambush clip looped on every local station by 9. My phone lit up with neighbors apologizing for believing the flyers, strangers offering lawn mowing help, the district attorney requesting my files. Friday the barn potluck drew 43 people. Folding chairs on sawdust, extension cords for crockpots, kids chasing fireflies between the stalls. I stood on an overturned crate and explained the plan. Heritage Meadows Community Association, $100 a year, no aesthetic rules, no fines, just a legal wall between us and predators. 30 signatures on the petition by dessert. We filed Monday. Approved Friday. Eleanor's cease and desist arrived Tuesday. Written proof she considered fraud a business. Tom framed it. She sued me for defamation 2 weeks later. 15 pages of wounded innocence. Tom countersued for fraud, extortion, racketeering. The courtroom smelled of lemon polish and dread. Victims filled 3 rows. Eleanor sat ramrod straight in navy, eyes promising retribution that would never come. The jury took 2 hours. Defamation claim dismissed. Counterclaim awarded. $500,000 to me, $300,000 to the Lawsons, $250,000 to Martha, $200,000 to the Mitchells. Total $1.25 million, the exact amount she had stolen. The judge barred her from ever serving on any HOA board and referred the file to the Commonwealth's attorney. Criminal charges followed. Extortion, wire fraud, conspiracy. Eleanor took a plea, 2 years in state prison, full restitution, lifetime real estate ban. Her assistants flipped for reduced sentences. Checks arrived before the first frost. Daniel paid off medical bills. Martha bought a condo with a garden view. Ryan and Sarah put a down payment on a house that would never know fake fines. I finished the restoration the following summer. Wide plank floors glowed like whiskey. The brick hearth breathed again. I kept Granddad's iron bedstead in the master, window open to the same fields he plowed. Heritage Meadows grew to 43 households. We built a tool library in Widow Johnson's garage, held potlucks under the oaks, ran a text chain for porch pirates. The state legislature passed the Anti-Phony HOA Act, requiring public filings and felony penalties for imposters. I testified at the signing, boots still dusted from my own barn. One October evening I sat on the porch with coffee, watching the sun bleed gold across the meadow. The house settled around me the way an old friend leans in. I thought of Eleanor in her jumpsuit, of families sleeping without fear, of covenants written by neighbors instead of predators. Granddad used to say the land owns us, not the other way around. I finally understood. Stewardship is not possession, it is promise. I still consult pro bono when another homeowner finds a red-circled violation on their door. I teach them 3 rules. Record everything. Find the money trail. Never blink first. The farmhouse stands as living proof that one stubborn carpenter with a phone and a refusal to be bullied can rewrite the map for an entire community. Now I want to hear from you. Did you fight, fold, or find a third path? Drop your story in the comments. Tell me where you draw the line between neighborly standards and outright theft. Justice only works when we speak it out loud.